Luke today continues this theme. Let's try that again. There we go. Luke today continues this theme of speaking about money, finance. It's never an easy topic to preach on, but nevertheless, this is a key theme in the gospel. It's a key theme throughout the scriptures, and I hope that my homily today will be maybe a little bit different take on this than perhaps you're used to. But to begin with, I want to tell a personal story. This is a story that happened to me a week ago today. I was blessed to be able to go to the bishop's dinner for Catholic education in Sioux City. And so I was driving to Sioux City. The dinner happened to be in South Sioux City, Nebraska, just across the river. And if you know Sioux City at all, there is one way to get from Sioux City into South Sioux City, basically, without just meandering a whole long way out of your way. And so I was driving over this viaduct, and I happened to get stopped at a red light. And wouldn't you know it, but just ahead of me, literally not more than 3 feet, was a man with a sign that said, "Homeless veteran, please help, anything helps," something to that effect. Whether or not he was a homeless veteran or not, I have no idea. But here's the deal. I failed. I waved at him, and that was it. Jesus Christ put in front of me an opportunity to be this rich man to Lazarus. And I truly believe that that man on the side of the road was Jesus, because Jesus Christ is present in every poor person. Now, I hope that I'm wrong about this, but I suspect that a number of my brother priests and a number of other people who were going to this dinner, because remember, this is the only way to get there, this is the only road from Sioux City into South Sioux City, also drove by this man. And we're supposed to evangelize him. We're supposed to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with him. But the message that I gave, because I had my collar on, the message I gave was the same message that the rich man, we traditionally call him Dives, the Latin word for wealthy or the Latin word for rich. That's the same message that he gave to Lazarus, that I didn't care. And so yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to confession, and I did confess to my confessor that I failed in an opportunity to minister to a person in need. And so the question that I want to put to each one of us is, how do we do as a group, collectively? Because here's the deal, brothers and sisters. We are all the rich man, all of us, every single one of us. The reality is that if you drove a car here to Mass today, if you had food on your table yesterday, if you had a roof over your head, then we are wealthier than pretty much everyone who has ever existed in human history. And make no mistake about it, at the end of our life, Jesus Christ will hold us accountable for what we did with the wealth that he has given us. Think of the gospel last week. It was the parable of the dishonest steward. And so it kind of sets the stage for this gospel, where our blessed Lord essentially says, how are you stewarding the gifts that I have given to you? Because at the end of the day, when we get right down to it, everything, brothers and sisters, comes from him. Everything. Every penny to our name, at the end of the day, comes from him. And so I want to make one brief recommendation, and it's this. Do we tithe? Do we tithe? In other words, are we conscious and deliberate about the assistance that we give to the poor? Now, I'm not saying that your tithe necessarily has to go to the church. Obviously, I think part of it should, and I'll talk about why that is. But do we tithe to the poor? Whether that's to a homeless shelter, a crisis pregnancy center, something along those lines, to the missions, for the proclamation of the gospel. There's any number of different ways that we can do this. But I want to lay out 3 reasons of why I think it's necessary. The first is just objectively, as I said, I do think part of that should come to the church. Objectively, these lights, brothers and sisters, do not turn themselves on. This air conditioning unit does not run itself. The candles up here, the bread and the wine that we use for Mass, salaries for the employees, they do not pay for themselves. Where does that come from? It comes from your generosity. It's the only way that works. The second reason of why I think that we need to be deliberate in our tithing is for ourselves. So first of all, just objectively for the church, but second of all, for ourselves. Because remember, what do we do oftentimes with money? A lot of times we have this attitude, at least if I'm looking at my own life, I know I do. I cling to it, like, nope, it's mine. I want it. Right? I mean, it's like Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. It's mine, my precious, right? I want it. And so in returning to the Lord, 10%, which is what the scriptures call for, 10% of what he has given to us, we are in a sense saying, I am not attached to this money. I'm not attached to the bottom line of my bank account. I control my money. It does not control me. And suddenly when we do that, all of a sudden everything else falls into place. Because we have to start budgeting. And we have to say, okay, do I really need the biggest channel package on DirecTV? Do I really need a $5 mocha latte from Starbucks 3 or 4 times a week? And we start asking ourselves, what do I really need? What is a luxury when we give God the first fruits of our labor? And finally, this is kind of part of the second one here, God is never outdone in generosity, brothers and sisters. He is never outdone in generosity. This has certainly been the case in my own life. But sincerely, not Jesus, in the Old Testament, God the Father, one time that I'm aware of, says, hey, put me to the test. And it's when he's asking his people to be generous. He says, hey, put me to the test. Try me. And so if you're not already in the habit of tithing because you're like, oh, I just don't think I can afford it, put him to the test. Try him. Try him. And if he doesn't come through, then you have my permission to stop tithing. But try him. Third and finally, I need my servers. Come here, boys. Come here. So first of all is just objectively, we need to turn the lights on. Second of all is for ourselves so that we're not attached to this stuff. Third and finally, come here, gentlemen, is for these guys. And I could have just as easily pulled up any child among us. Last night I had the blessing of having the children's choir at Willie, and I just said, hey, come here, guys. But today you two get to be my guinea pigs. Brothers and sisters, we are facing a dire priest shortage in the Diocese of Sioux City. Just to give you some hard numbers, best case scenario, 5 years from now, we are looking at 7 less active priests in the diocese, and that's assuming none of the guys my age die in a car accident. We are looking at a dire priest shortage. So where does that come from? It comes from these young men. And when we give our money away, not all of it, but part of it, we are implicitly telling them, catechetically, that your life is not your own. See, they're growing up in a world, turn and look at you guys. You guys are growing up in a world that tells you your life belongs to you. Do whatever you want with it. It's entirely up to you. But brothers and sisters, that is completely antithetical to the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is completely antithetical to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because Christ says, no, will you lay down your life for me? Will you give of yourself until it hurts? And so when we give of ourselves, we are giving to them the message that your life is not your own. I do not believe that it is a coincidence, brothers and sisters, that in the Diocese of Wichita, Kansas, they have a very unique problem. They have more young priests, my age and younger, than they actually have assignments available for them. They don't know what to do with all of their young priests. I do not think it is a coincidence that in the Diocese of Wichita, there is a culture of tithing, so much so that every single Catholic child in the diocese who wants to can go to Catholic school for free, 0 tuition. Why? Because the people tithe. but it also reinforces to their young people that your life is not your own. One more final story here. When I was their age, how old are you? 9, how old are you? 11, all right. So when I was this young man's age, what's your name, dude? Sam, all right. When I was Sam's age, I was 9. I got my first job. I was delivering papers for the advertising guide in Storm Lake. So every one, I got 5 cents. And at the end of every week, I got $5.90. You know how I remember that? It's very simple. Because when I first got my first job, my first little paper route, my dad sat me down. And he said, all right, son, I'm going to teach you a little math lesson. My dad was pretty good at math. And he said, you see this, $5.90? I want you to take this little decimal point, move it right over here, one spot. He said, what is that? I said, 59 cents. He's like, that's right, 59 cents. And every week, you're going to count out 59 cents, and you're going to put it in this envelope, and you're going to put it in the collection plate at church. Because your mom and I do that, and we expect you to do that. It was a very simple lesson, but it instilled in me this value that at the end of the day, my life is not my own. It does not belong to me. It belongs to the Lord, just like every gift that we have ever received. Brothers and sisters, you're the rich man, and so am I. If we are born in this country, which near as I can tell, all of us were, we are the rich man. And make no mistake about it, at the end of our life, Jesus Christ will hold us accountable. Thanks, guys.